Yeah, I was thinking as far as what you wear, I think you should brand yourself. This is senior mentor advice, and
Yes, sir.
just always be yourself, and so your audience is going to see to come looking for you. And if you're in a tie one time, and then you're a collar shirt, and then you're in a tank top because you're doing Hulk Hogan or something.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree, but also my enlisted Marine brain
Yeah,
kind of comes back into play, and I'm kind of hardwired. Like, wait a minute, what's the uniform of the day? All right, so um, all right, so we'll go ahead and kick this off. So today on Still Rolling, I'm sitting down with someone who's lived a lifetime of leadership, service, and grit. Lieutenant General Michael Ferriter, U.S. Army. Over a 35-year career, he has commanded soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and international forces at every level. From leading on the ground in Somalia with Task Force Ranger to 3 combat deployments in Iraq, uh, the general has also been in charge of the Army's Installation Management Command with a $12 billion budget. That's billion with a B, and 75,000 personnel around the world. He's in both the U.S. Army Ranger Hall of Fame and the Ohio Veterans Hall of Fame. And after the Army, he also became the very first and founding president and CEO of the National Veterans Memorial and Museum. That's just part of his story. General Ferriter is also a second degree black belt under Alliance founder Romero Jacare Cavalcanti. He is one of my own instructors here at Gracie, Ohio, where he brings the same discipline and mentorship from the battlefield onto the mats. Today, he continues to give back through veteran organizations. Uh, General Ferriter, how are you?
I'm happy. It's great to be with you, Matt.
Yeah, it's I've got a general on here. My Marine brain uh, is thrilled. Um, so let's start with maybe part of let's talk about your Army career a little bit, and then how Jiu-Jitsu sort of came into the picture eventually, if that's okay.
That's perfect. So I grew up in an Army family, and um, when uh, when I was about 12 and 13 and 14, we lived in Berlin, Germany, and my dad was um, the chief of staff of Berlin. My dad was received the Distinguished Service Cross for valor during World War II, and I'm very proud of him, of course. As the chief of staff, he worked for 2 different generals. One was a guy named Ferguson, and the other was a guy named Cygnus. And little did little Mikey know that he was getting set up already at that point for something. So when we got back to California, my father retired, and I ended up at the Robert Louis Stevenson School in Pebble Beach playing baseball and basketball. But one block over was retired General Ferguson. So that connection started me there. And then um, when I graduated from high school, I wanted to play ball down at University of California, Santa Barbara, or at UC Davis, where all my friends from Lake Tahoe were going to school. And my dad had he had me look at the catalog for the Citadel in Charleston, South Carolina. And I said, Dad, they make you shave your head and march and all that. And I'm not up for that. I'm into being a California baseball player. And he said, take a look at it one more time. Well, it turned out that General Cygnus, uh, when he retired from the Army, became the president of the Citadel. So um, I, I received an Army scholarship, 4-year scholarship, and really did think that there's a good chance that I'd serve more than just my 4 years to pay back, and really thought that uh, probably going to the Citadel would give me a good start. And if I didn't like it, we agreed I could go to Santa Barbara. I did like it and made great friends and learned gobs and gobs about leadership there. And then I was commissioned in 1979, second lieutenant of infantry. And one of the things we may touch on is you're not going to get what you want in life, but you're going to get something. So let's make the most of it. So when I was commissioned, one of my ROTC instructors said, "My great news, you're going to the 82nd Airborne Division at Fort Bragg, North Carolina." And man, that was a dream come true. Except he was wrong. He had someone else's orders. He came back and said, "Oh man, sorry about that. You're really going to Fort Riley, Kansas, in the middle of nowhere, and you're going to ride around in armored vehicles, and you're not going to be a paratrooper. You're not going to be a ranger." suck it up. So I ended up going to Fort Riley, and I lived 4 years of not being Ranger qualified as an infantryman. That's really third class citizen, and you're treated that way quite often by the tribes of our services, the things you shouldn't do and supposed to do. So I went back to the captain's course, and then I went to Ranger School, and pretty significant because um, not many people who weren't Ranger qualified go later and then end up having a full career in the operational Ranger force, which I was able to do. I'm a pretty big believer in rejecting rejection. And so if things don't go your way, either counter offer or find a way to get after what you want. Like we talked to Brian this morning about you're in order to. And then I went up to Alaska, was a paratrooper there. I went down to Second Ranger Battalion as a senior captain and commanded a second 3 Airborne company of Rangers and did Bravo Company 275. And then I, I I wanted to go to Command General Staff College, Desert Shield, Desert Storm kicked off, so I missed that. Panama kicked off, I missed that, and I thought, oh my God, I'm the only guy in the Army that's can't find a war, won't last more than a weekend. Then I was told that all the slots to the Rangers were taken by the majors coming out of Command General Staff College. So I thought I'd just go in and see General Kernan, the regimental commander, and thank him for all he'd done for me and my father previously out of Fort Ord. And he said, "Oh, I'm so glad. I heard you were going to the 101st, but we had a slot for you. Do you want to go back to the Rangers?" Amazing. So I said, "Of course."
Yeah.
And then, so that was 3rd Ranger Battalion. And um, during that time, we lost a dear friend and my commander in a helicopter crash that I was supposed to be on several times during the mission profile. Who's going to fly this? Who's going to do command and control from the other place? And then his replacement came in, and several months later, we went to Mogadishu, Somalia. And I feel like our 6 Rangers that we lost there, things might have been different if Colonel Keneally had been in command. Colonel McKnight did a great job. He's a great person, but I think some decisions Keneally would have made to save those guys. Just my opinion. I went to up to the 82nd as a lieutenant colonel, commanded the battalion, and then was selected to command a Ranger battalion. So I came back down to 3rd Ranger Battalion and commanded it. And then in a really challenging uh, assignment, selection for assignment, I was not given the Ranger Regiment. I was selected for the school brigade. I was, you know, I like to say ego is no amigo. And so it was like, do they know who they're dealing with? I'm the best guy that I think I know. And it turned out again that our number one assignment officer in life is going to be the Lord, not some guy in Washington, D.C. And it was there that I uh, moved on the opportunity of meeting with Hoyce and Horian Gracie the year prior, and a 4-star asked me to make the officer courses tougher, to scuff them up, with the quote, scuff up those lieutenants and scuff up those captains. And so I got with a guy named Matt Larson and Troy Thomas eventually, and we rewrote the hand-to-hand fighting manual for the Army and put Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, ground fighting, and grappling into the manual so we could put it into the program instructions so we could teach our soldiers and officers to fight. And that's what started all that. And I was still a basketball player and intramural softball, baseball player. I was not frustrated. Didn't get to go to the Olympics because of the Russians and the boycott and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Wrestler, I was introduced to it at that point, and that started all that. So I'll pause there and respond to your thoughts.
Well, I can identify with the feeling of being scared that you're going to miss the war. I was in Okinawa when 9/11 happened, and we were all scared to death that we were going to get stuck on that island while
Mhm.
everybody else got to go and take care of some business. And gratefully, we finished our UDP and came back to the States, and then we spent the next year getting ready to go to Iraq um, in for OIF 1 and 2. Um, so talk about fortuitous but unseen circumstance where you didn't get what you wanted, but it put you in maybe the best possible place, as it relates to jujitsu at least, where now you're in a position you meet Horian and Hoist, right?
Yeah, the year was 98, and I was a major battalion commander, and um, Colonel Stan McChrystal was our regimental commander, and he came down and asked me, he said, Mike, what do you think? How do you feel about bringing Horian and Hoist Gracie to teach your Rangers how to fight? And I asked him, well, sir, how much does that cost? And he said $40,000. I said, shit, so we don't even have night scopes on all of our machine guns. If, for all you veterans who listen in, and you've had a fully kitted up M4 and fully kitted up, saw, fully kitted up machine gun. We didn't have them. We went to Mogadishu. We borrowed equipment from Delta Force. Uh, so, so I said, no, sir, I'd rather not. I'd rather take that 40,000 and buy, 2 or 3 more scopes. He said, I'm not asking you to approve it. I just wondered how you felt about it because you're going to do it. I did. I got 0 votes and he had 2.
Yeah.
So we invited them, and then Hoist had won the first 2 out of 3, I think, UFCs, and the Rangers wanted to know why this uh, not huge man was beating big men, little men, wrestlers, kung fu, karate, and it came down to uh, Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, that their father, Helio Gracie, had taken the Japanese art and, along with his brothers, um, really refined it. So, as a self-defense, it could also be offensive, and it could also allow a smaller man or woman to handle the situation. And to me, I thought it was perfect for the Rangers, and then I thought it was more perfect for a generation of young men coming in to checking power here. Young men coming into service that didn't grow up playing rough sports. Um,
Yeah.
so so we snuck it into the curriculum, and even to this day, today, there are people trying to kill that program, and it's usually because they're afraid to get on the mats themselves and be a leader by example with their men. And if you get on the mats, you're going to get tapped.
Yeah.
But if you say, hey, that's all right, I experienced something, I also showed the men I'm not afraid to suffer with them. But so it's
Yeah.
been all those years of helping the program to stay alive and to teach younger officers who are in senior positions that actually you can support this program and you should.
That's honestly shocking to me because I was in the Marine Corps on active duty when we made the transition from the line training to MCMAP,
Yes.
and we used to joke that somebody, when we were doing line training, we joked that somebody was going to go out in town and get their ass kicked trying to use the line training. And so when MCMAP came around, it was like, okay, wait a minute, this is a much more feasible, uh, repeatable um, kind of fighting style. And I looked forward to whenever we had a McMap day. Hey, let's go. I was ready
Of
to
course.
grapple. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't picture a scenario where, as far as people with warrior ethos would want to um, get rid of something that's very clearly effective.
Yeah, exactly right. And to the first part, everyone does, they do love it. They may not be their hobby, but
Mhm.
that's okay. What they do on the weekend, they might play golf, they might do motocross, but um, when we enter and clear a room, like, we don't want a private looking over his shoulder saying, Sergeant, there's a bad guy in here. We want him to move confidently and accomplish the mission and be safe. And then likewise, our saying was, we may not be able to uh, beat kick the butt of everyone in the Atlanta airport, but we want our soldiers walking through there like they can.
Yeah,
And that's that confidence that comes with them. Go, carries through all parts of their life.
absolutely. So what does that look like when you're making a transition and you're trying to bring the jiu-jitsu in? At the Marine Corps, we have our Naval Warfighting College where officers will go and they'll learn, obviously, warfighting tactics and whatnot, but um, the college and the warfighting lab, um, I I know when I was in, we had something called Project Metropolis where we were working on our urban doctrine. So spent a whole lot of time going back and forth through iterations of something called Project Metropolis. Was there like a test environment for the modern combatives, or was it a thing where you guys had it, you knew you had it, and you rolled it out?
Yeah, it was organic, and it was driven by Matt Larson. Uh, Troy Thomas showed up about 3 months later, and I just promoted him to four-stripe black belt last week. And these two guys created a skunk works in my brigade operations office. And, someone would say, you can't do this because it's not in the manual. So they rewrote the manual. Well, you can't do this because it's not in the program of instruction. So we rewrote the program. Well, you can't do this because you don't have certified instructors. So we went out to Jock Array and created a certification for our instructors at the school. He said, you can't do this because you don't have mats. So we went to, I think, Jordan High School or Columbus High School, and they were getting new wrestling mats. So the U.S. Army went and picked up the mats that they were kind of throwing away for the first iteration. And then finally they said, you got to have a facility. And so a guy named Colonel Bob Jordan had the book warehouse. Back then, when you reported, you would get 2 boxes of books, manuals. And then one day they were CDs, and then now they're online. But so I traded him a bunch of MREs. He was a deer hunter for the book warehouse and another building where he could hand the books out. The MREs, everybody, they were in the basement of Officer Candidate School, and they were all the leftovers that the candidates didn't eat on their 5-day FTX. So, but the real lesson is we didn't blink. We knew we were going to do it, and then we went on really a marketing campaign. So there's a lot of business um, lessons learned here. It's both transformational as well. Um, and then went to the divisions of the Army who we knew the leaders or our friends, colleagues, and we knew they were warriors and not pansies. And then got them in the circle of friends, and then continued to build, grow, and tell the story of the program.
That's a testament to saying, just because you hear no doesn't mean uh, that the fight's
Yeah,
over. When
I think if you hear no, you look at yourself first and say, I'm not doing a compelling job of telling the story. They don't get it yet. I have to work it harder so that they can understand, or I have to, teach them, um, get them to the mats and show them, let them feel uh, what's going on there, so that they know, man, this is way more than wrestling.
and
This is a leadership
at that
event.
point in
Every time,
time, were you what belt rank were you at that point? If you were showing them,
probably, yeah, I probably was a white belt, one stripe.
right? Okay, so you were
Yeah,
still a relative beginner, but probably a one stripe white belt. You've at least got some time, and you can scissor sweep a guy and uh
yeah, yep,
and still show
yep,
them.
yeah. And the Army did have pre command courses, and so every lieutenant colonel, his command sergeant major, and every full colonel and command sergeant major would come through, and I wrote into that command development program, a 4-hour block, so that they would understand where we were going, and they became kind of lead sled dogs into the future.
Okay, so once this has been implemented, I mean, you were obviously then deploying. You were, you had other bigger fish to fry, so to speak, with deployment schedules and operations, um, combat. Now, when all of that ends, because one of the things about this podcast that I try to talk about a lot is transitional times in service members' lives, but also athletes. And we talked about this a little bit this morning after class in the locker room. But you know, a lot of guys, believe it or not, get out and they haven't done nearly 4 decades in the Army, right? They've got 4 to 8 years. A lot of folks they'll get out, they're still in their 20s, and they have been identifying themselves for the last however many years as a soldier or a Marine or a football player or a basketball player, and those kinds of athletic careers or military times in service end. And when they end, it's just over. Now you have to reinvent yourself. You have to get into something different. You have to find a new mission and purpose of existence, rather than actually, I listened to one of your other interviews and you talked about looking through the windshield rather than the rear view. And
Mhm.
so what what has what has that looked like for you as far as making that transition out of service, um, into other kinds of service? I know that you were working with the museum, but what is that transition like for a guy that does have 30 something years in, and what advice could you give to anybody with any amount of service, and how that transition and how you approach uh, that kind of a massive change?
Yeah, I've described it as jumping out of the airplane and not hooking up your parachute, or not having a parachute. So there's free falling. And I think so everyone should first of all know that they're not alone. They're not the first one that feels like, holy crap, I don't know who I am. Um, so at the same time, well, why don't we view it as an opportunity to see who we're going to be? And then Start on Purpose is a good book to read, but start on purpose, right? The same thing I said this morning to Brian. What's your in order to? I am here in order to do what? And then the things that you can stabilize, you should. All right, which is um, you know, a physical fitness routine or hobby that causes you to breathe heavy and sweat. And then, believe in something. If you know what your favorite beer is and you know what your favorite football team is, then you might as well figure out what you believe about, the Lord and big things in your life. And then take care of your people. If your people's, if they're, 5 year, 8 year service and you have a wife and a couple kids, show them you care, pay attention to them, and then start. It We probably never figured out in the army that it if you put a civilian look to it, it's like, oh, I got a job, but now I'm a mechanized platoon leader, but now I'm a supply officer. If you put that, now I'm a company commander, now I'm an ops officer. If we said we took away the guide rails of well, it's in military service and military units, and instead we said, we've already been able to transition job to jobs, land the first job, and then know that you may have to um, PCS. You may have to move.
Mhm.
That's not fair then. So just get your first job and either prepare yourself for the next level or start looking to the next level. More than likely, you're going to be underemployed when you come out of service. You're going to be under, but that's all right. That's just consider that, you know, you can't command a company until you do your platoon time. And so with those as kind of principles, that's the way I would go. And then, maintain friends who were friends, drop the ones that were not friends, and then um, get as stable in your life as you can, get as routine as you can,
Yeah.
and know what you do each week on certain days, and things you'll be pretty happy. I guarantee it.
Yeah, yeah. It was quite the trip. I was on stop loss towards the end of I was on stop loss actually for the whole start of the war. Um, and so when I came out of Iraq, we waited a couple of weeks down in Kuwait, because General Franks had not given uh, authorization for anybody to leave theater yet. Um, and then I came back, and 2 weeks later, I was out of the Marine Corps looking for a
Oh my
job in
gosh.
Columbus, Ohio. I was, it was a really quick transition where I think I still had some missing limb syndrome going on, having that emergency feeling of where's my
Yes.
rifle, where's my gas mask, uh, while I'm about to go interview for my first job out of the Marine Corps. I went into car sales, um, and I had my pregnant wife at home, and I had to just go get a job. It's just, there was no time to really think about anything other than it's time to get to work. And I definitely, I had periods in my life that I seriously struggled, some very difficult times over the years. But at the end of the day, you don't give up, and you decide that, you know, it's time to crawl up. It's time to lace the boots and crawl
Hmm.
out of whatever hole you put yourself in, and get after it. But I think a big piece of that, at least for me, was um, I decided that I needed to finish things that I started. So finishing school and this jujitsu journey that I've been on, where I've kind of come to it and then left for whatever, and then come back and circled around. And I was maybe the sandbagger king at white belt for a long time. I think I didn't get a blue belt until I'd been messing around with jujitsu for more. It was like 17 years. Um, so, uh, but I'm back, and I'm in that season where I'm finishing things that I started. And not that jujitsu ever ends, but but I figured out the consistency piece and figured out how to be disciplined, I guess, in my post military life. Um, so you ran the museum. Um, are you I mean, you're still teaching at Gracie, Ohio. Are you retired at this point? Are you playing a lot of golf, or?
Well, if you remember some of the famous movies of our days, um, one is My Cousin Vinny, and the other is The Princess Bride. And so in Princess Bride, they said he's mostly dead, and so I am mostly retired. But I I and I play a lot of. I like golf and I like jujitsu, and I find a lot of similarities in how you practice to get better, how you play smart. How you course manage in golf is the same as managing space and distance in jiu-jitsu. I consult, uh, sort of chairman of the military advisory board for Bolden Networks. They do large venues like the Kansas City Chiefs Stadium and the UFC uh, arena, and they do smart cities, and like Smart City London and Chicago, Bay Area Rapid Transit out west, and many they do 300 universities. So I help companies who don't know how to connect to the military or military bases. I
Mm-hmm.
help them, and so I help a construction company right now that rebuilding the bridges on Interstate 10 down by Destin and Fort Walton and to speak the language of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. They've asked me to help there, and it's been very good for them and all. And then I help as many people as I possibly can. Whether there's the kid Anthony this morning, you know, or any one of our students, but um, just finding a way. Margie and I never got that worked up about being a 3-star general or being a 3-star's wife, but we did figure out a 3-star can make stuff happen. So just like with this combative thing, when someone says, "Hey, maybe not," then you just call them and say, "Look, let's sit down and have a cup of coffee, talk it through. I need to let you know why this is important." Or if they can't get on a base, or veteran golfers, Matt, is we started in 2014.
Mm-hmm.
They came to me right as I retired. There were like 300 guys who were golfing, 23,000 golfers across the country, veterans, their families, um, and with 23,000 golfers in 10 years now, 11 years now, not one suicide. And so when I go there we did the national championship, and guys will come up and say, "You saved my life, General. You saved my life. If I didn't have this," and I think that's the power of jujitsu as well, because it gives you the activity, gives you a focus. There's nothing else to think about except for how you're going to get, you know, Oscar off you or RJ off you or something like that,
Yeah.
and then and you're learning, and then you have that, this morning, everybody, after we did our lesson, at least till you walked out the door, I was doing something in my car. It was 25 after.
Hmm.
So there's a bond of friendships and discussions and support, and did you know, and business to business sharing, where someone will say, yeah, I know how to do power power of attorney, or or whatever. So all these things is what I do, to answer the question, and I got plenty of bandwidth, and a lot of capacity to still help a lot of people. That's what I
Well,
do.
that's for anybody that might be listening. If you're not, if you don't have a military background, you don't pay attention to military affairs. Um, about 7% of people in our country serve in our armed forces, and we account for, I think it's nearly 20% of suicides. Um, so the rate in which veterans are struggling enough to take their own lives is something that is, number one, it's got to be addressed, and number two, we can always do more to help other veterans. So, whether it's the Golf Association, I've got some affiliation with the We Defy Foundation, which puts disabled combat vets on the mats. Um, it's important, and and even if it's not fitness related, you pointed me over to the Patriot Art Foundation, and they're doing good
Hmm.
work with art therapy. um, so there are outlets that veterans have, but the most important thing is your friends and the people that you um, served with. You need to check on them. We talk about that on Fridays, our buddy checks. It's important that you go and do those things, and you don't stop doing them. I've hit a point in my life that I have had more of my friends that I knew from the military pass um, after getting out due to suicide than I had actually lost in Iraq. Um, and so that's something that I'll always be, you know, aware of, and especially I had, like, again, I alluded to challenges that I had coming back with, some depression and PTSD, and it's been a process. But I'll say that jujitsu has been that outlet for me that has sort of, it's a place where it takes 100% of your focus 100% of the time. Similar to golf. I mean, that people that play golf, if you have never played golf, it is not like any other sport. Um, every other sport, the ball's moving. You got to catch the ball. You got to shoot the ball. You got to, control a puck. This one, the ball just sits there, and it dares you to hit it, and you got to have technique. So we talked a little bit about, getting out, finding purpose. How jujitsu is at least bridge some of my gap, and can bridge the gap for people in service. Um, What do you, if for active duty service members? We have a young lieutenant that just graduated OCS. Um, what role can jujitsu play in their readiness and their resilience as younger service members, or maybe not so young but active?
Yeah, I would say that um, you never want to find out in combat what you don't know, and so if you're in service, number one, do your best, um, do what's right, improve daily. And thinking about this uh, opportunity this afternoon with you, Matt, I thought, improve daily. Figure out where you can be. What mastery do you need as a professional in our military? And that means, going to master your personal weapon. And then you've got to understand your crew serve weapons in your platoon or your company, right? And it's so easy because whether it's a ranger or paratrooper or marine, if you walk up to a young guy and say, "I don't know how to use that weapon, teach me," that PFC will love it and respect you because. So don't avoid that. And then when it comes to fighting, if you have a good fighter in your organization, a grappler, say, teach me. And you know, I like to think about marathons. I've run a bunch of marathons, and every single one at mile 22, some old fat lady runs by me, and I was like, "What the heck just happened?" Right? So no, you don't have to fight everyone in your platoon and beat them. You don't have to fight every man and woman in your division or battalion or brigade and beat them. And you don't have to, when you run a marathon, it's about you. It's about what's my personal time? How do I feel? And then you get into yourself and you're like, oh man, what's my heart rate? I feel good. I don't want to cramp up. And I've done everything right on marathons and everything wrong on marathons. When you see somebody run by you, you're like, all right, you take pause. And then you go, you still wear the Boston Marathon t-shirt. You don't go, well, I got beat by that lady. It looked like she
Yeah.
was 58 years old and needed to lose 20 pounds. Oh, and so jujitsu is the same way. So, young officer, seek mastery, knowing that a lot of what you're going to be presented is are firsts, and you won't be a master until someday. And then young officers will come up to you and say, "Sir, we have a problem. 1, 2, 3, 4," and you'll say, "Do this," and they'll go, "God, you're so smart." Yeah, you're so smart because you stacked your experiences up. So don't avoid experience, but seek experience, and then share experience and share credit. You know, um, if you're a young officer, you better care about your people. You know, you better care enough to grab someone like Captain Tracy, who was our finance captain, who gave my guy no pay due 3 days in a row. So I went down to finance, and I said, "Art, this guy's wife thinks he's an idiot because he's working for free." Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, he used blue ink on my paper. If I have all black ink, then I get the finance commander's award. And I grabbed him and said, "I'm going to pull you through this cage, and I'm going to beat your tail in front of all your men. We're going to pay this guy now." So you
Yeah.
got that. Don't do it. Don't if you're a young officer, don't get in fights and pull people through cages these
Right.
days.
Yeah.
But present yourself with that kind of stern belief in taking care of your guys, and when you do, they'll take care of you.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's Woody Hayes said you win with people. Um, and I do also know that in our in our football facility at OSU, we had a um, sign that says they don't care what you know until they know how much you care. Um,
I love that.
Along with a bunch of other adages. Coach Tressel was fantastic when I was there. Um, so you had a heart surgery, didn't in the last few years?
15 months ago.
Okay, and how has that changed your perspective on? I mean, obviously, it has to change your perspective on jujitsu, but also life. But what would you say as far as jujitsu goes? Being taken off the mats, trying to come back after something major has taken you off.
Yeah, I went out for a foot march on a Thursday morning. Why does a 68-year-old go out for a foot march with a pack? Because I'm an Army Ranger. That's what we do. But and I got a burning sensation right in my chest. It felt like a laser beam, just a laser. And the more I walked, a little bigger. So it went from a laser to size of a nickel to felt like the size of a golf ball. And when I stopped walking, it just went away. So um, so I came home and after a moment or two, Margie and I decided that I'd go into the VA and have it looked at. And the woman doctor there saved my life because she said all your vitals, all your EKG, everything is perfect. But I got a hunch. So then she sent me over to Riverside, Ohio Health, and they did the same thing. They said, "We got a hunch, but we're going to keep you overnight." and tomorrow morning we'll do a stress test on the treadmill. And I
Mm,
smoked it. And they said, oh, okay. But we're still going to check one more thing. And they found a 90 to 95% blockage, but 85% and an 80% blockage of the three major arteries. And so they did, 2 days later, did an open heart and bypass surgery and took some veins and stuff out of my legs and created 270 around the city of my heart, so to speak.
okay.
And, and so, um, but I came back really fast to answer your question. But what it did cause, I was on the mat. This was May 7th, and I was on the mat July 4th. And what I did, I just went and got a hockey chest protector
Uh-huh.
and almost like a spandex thing with a rigid thing. So someone like you put knee on the chest, that I had a little
Yeah.
bit more protection. And then, but I just nursed it back but I've suddenly, first of all, it was like they took the 1979 Ford Pinto engine out and they put the 2024 Porsche engine in. I slept immediately, started sleeping better, and immediately, started getting in shape faster. Um, and so, but I also treated it military wise like day one recycle. Like you're in a course and they go, you failed. You can go back to your unit or you can start on day one. And so from there, I just started from feet, knees, uh, big muscles of the leg, core strength, air squats with 5 pounds to air squats with 45 pounds, and pumping it over my head and all of that. And so on purpose, the biggest change I made was um, I won't take a meeting before 10 in the morning and I won't take a meeting after 3. And as we
Okay.
negotiate the times here, that was behind the scenes, but no. And then I walk with have a cup of coffee with Margie, my wife, about 6 or 6:30, and then we walk these dogs, and then come back and get a workout and or teach jujitsu, and then get into the mostly retired work that I'm doing, taking calls and sitting, in some meetings, teams meetings or whatever Zoom, and then wrap it up and strap the golf bag on my shoulder at about 3 o'clock. Either play with my grandson Parker and now Maddox, or play 9 holes on my own, and then come back. And so I've kind of said that's the way it's going to be, and I'm not going to get, you know, money isn't going to cause me to work longer and harder. A couple times someone says, "Can you do this meeting in at 8:30?" And I said, "No," and I said, "No, I just cannot start that." So one of the doctors told me that I worked myself into that. All the others said it was my dad's fault. Dan Fossil, Dan Fosselman is a black belt in special ops surgeon with the Army, and he's here in town. And he asked me to come by, and God bless you, Dan. And he says, "Sir, you did this to yourself. You're a black belt in jiu-jitsu. You're a black belt as a general. You're a black belt as a CEO, and you're a freaking white belt in taking care of yourself." I took that to heart and said, "I'm going to take care of myself," and I did.
That's uh motion's the best lotion. I mean, you keep moving. My grandfather, he's now in his 90s, and he's an airborne paratrooper, a pathfinder from the 1950s Korean War era. Um,
Mhm.
he still goes out and does push-ups, and
Mhm. Yeah,
that never left, and he's a runner, and that's been the key to my grandparents' longevity is I think my grandfather has more running t-shirts from all the races than any other kind of article of clothing. um, but it's what he enjoyed, and it's kept him healthy. So as it relates to jujitsu, if you don't feel like you're in good enough shape to do jujitsu, you probably are. You just need to start.
exactly right. And the other thing, uh, that I try to show is I'm 68 years old, and and I had a cracked chest, open chest. But I'm 68, and um, I'm on the mats, and I can move and teach, and I roll selectively in a smart way. Um, but uh, I kind of had to work through that. And Matt Larson said, "How many times do you think Bill Belichick tackles somebody?" And he said, he teaches, and so he plays around. But he said, so for you, roll when it's right, or roll situationally to so they can feel it and touch it when you feel the way that you hold them, or sweep them or whatever. But at the same time, protect yourself. And but for all those generals and sergeant majors that say I'm too old, you're not. You're not. You just got to get the mats, and then do it at the pace that you develop yourself, and then um, you find more and more. You'll never quit learning if you go to the mats. Never, about yourself or about jujitsu.
I think pace isn't critical. It's critical. Having trained and rolled when I was in my mid-20s, and now that I'm in my mid-40s, I've the way that I think about it is I've got a weekly training gas tank,
Mm,
and I'll refill that tank on a couple of rest days, and the number of times that I can train is going to be dependent on how much gas do I spend each time I go. So if I go and I'm having hard, heavy competition roles with, somebody 2 decades younger that wants to be competitive, that might use up a good chunk of my gas tank where maybe I have to take a day off. Um, but if I can focus more on rolling in a way that I can roll indefinitely, and I think you talked to me a little bit about energy conservation. Uh,
mhm.
if I can do it that way and I can roll it like a 30%, number one, that's going to keep my gas tank full so I can train all week. But also, I think it's in a way, it's making my jujitsu better because I am a heavyweight. I'm typically one of the larger guys, and so for a lot of my younger years, I got away with sort of being bigger and heavier and stronger than a lot of folks,
Mhm.
where I could kind of muscle through. And now that I'm trying to roll in such a light, lower impact kind of way, it's forcing me to be more technical and to make my jujitsu better.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Yeah, I don't think you've ever heard me say, "All right, we're going to go 2 minutes. I want everyone to go full speed, go as hard as you can." You're not going to.
No, no. That's in fact, I don't think I've heard any jujitsu coach say that out of other than maybe in a competition or a specific competition class.
Mhm,
But
mhm.
but on a Tuesday night, no, we're not trying to win world championships. So, um, sir, it is past your 3 o'clock hour. You going to playing golf here in a few minutes?
I probably will. I probably will.
Okay,
I kind of front loaded some of the activities, but it's a beautiful day and beautiful Friday, and it seems that all the grandkids are committed this evening. So maybe Morgan and I will go out, have a dinner, and a nice night together.
that's fantastic. Um, well, I can't thank you enough for coming on to the Still Rolling podcast. We talked about it. This is a brand new thing for me. Um, but your journey from combat leadership and founding a national museum and mentoring, both service members, soldiers, and now jujitsu students. You've lived a life. It's a master class in service and resilience. I feel extremely fortunate to have this opportunity to learn from you on the mats, and I know that anybody that might be listening, I hope that they'll take away lessons that they can apply to places far beyond jujitsu. So I appreciate it. You, sir, are a giant among men, and I'll see you in class.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, sir.
Do your
Have a
best.
good day.
Talk to you later. Thanks a lot. Excellent.